Hey, Viking fans. The Minnesota Vikings are going to be buyers at the trade line. Let's talk about who they could get as a pass rusher next in 3, 2, 1. Gather around, Skull Brothers and Sisters. This is Skull World, brought to you by Minnesota Sports Talk. I'm your host, Dave. You can follow me on Twitter, TikTok, and Facebook at Skull World. Also, MN Sports Podcasts on Instagram. Also, make sure you leave a comment, subscribe, like, comment. Make sure you do that. That way, you can get entered into our contest, getting a Justin Jefferson jersey. That's a real thing. Go comment. You'll get entered to win a Justin Jefferson jersey when I get to 3,000 subs. All right. But make sure that you are subscribed to all three channels: Minnesota Sports Talk, Purple and Gold for Days, and GG Sports Podcast. Let's go. That's the brands. Those are the brands. Let's go. Now, Minnesota Vikings will be going to Green Bay. We're gonna get our fourth victory. Let's go. But once we do, we're gonna be buyers at the trade deadline. So I'm gonna talk about a particular pass rusher that we could get, and that is Chase Young. Chase Young. So we're going to talk about Chase Young. I'm pulling up an article. It's from Heavy, but it's pretty detailed. They give a headline saying that we've already got him, but that's crap. So let's just read it. The Minnesota Vikings have clawed their ways back to relevancy and to buyer status ahead of the NFL trade deadline after upending the San Francisco 49ers. Minnesota Vikings chances of making the playoffs left above 50% for the first time in several weeks, according to ESPN's Football Power Index. The jump coincides with October 31st deadline changes the calculus on how the Vikings should operate over the next week. It also necessitates an examination the Vikings can get most bang for their buck on a roster that remains full of holes. What's our holes, really? Do we got a lot of holes? I don't know. While offensive line depth and bona fide number one running back are needs, I don't think so. I think we got Cam Akers. I think he'd take over and be our number one back, no problem. Some help for Danielle Hunter off the edge will allow Minnesota to minimize the production of the best defensive player. Maximize. So, hey, Davenport would be that guy. We would have Davenport. He'd be fine, but you can't trust him. So what are they saying? Hey, let's go after a pass rusher. Deanna Rossini of The Athletic reported last Sunday that the Washington Commanders are making and taking calls on defensive linemen Chase Young and Montez Sweat. Not just taking them, making them. But hey, looking at Chase Young or Montez Sweat, I think it either would be a good fit and just a replacement for Davenport and maybe an upgrade. At least in Chase Young's category, but Montez Sweat's pretty awesome too. Both have contracts expiring after the season, could be on the trade block. I was told Washington has made calls to take the temperature of the market, but is staying patient now, and that the next 2 weeks of play will shape the decision on the futures. This was before the last game. The sense I get out of Washington is one of them will be on the move if Washington can get the proper compensation. So here's another. Young and Sweat are both viable candidates to contribute to Minnesota, though Young is 3 years Sweat's junior and has played one fewer NFL seasons. Yeah, go with the younger guy, but can you re-sign him? That kind of thing. That would be a main contention of what the trade compensation would be. Washington drafted Young number 2 overall in 2020, and the defensive end is playing in the final season of a 4-year, $35 million rookie deal. They didn't extend him, or they didn't give him his fifth-year option. The Commanders had the opportunity to exercise a fifth-year team option in Young's contract last offseason because of his status as a former first-round pick, but chose not to do so. The reasoning behind Washington's decision to allow Young to potentially hit the free agency next March is twofold. Young has battled injury, playing just 12 games across 2021 and 2022 season. Those issues followed a rookie campaign in which Young made the Pro Bowl and earned Defensive Rookie of the Year honors. Washington's second reason for not picking up Young's option exists in the same position group. The Commanders have built a stellar defensive line over the past several years. which resulted in several big paydays coming due. So Chase Young has made a resurgence. So this is their thought behind that. Chase Young, the Washington Commanders, runs into the field. Or Young is in the midst of a resurgent season 2023, amassing 18 pressures, 9 QB hits, and 5 sacks through 6 games per Pro Football Reference. This play will allow for the Commanders to sell high ahead of deadline, which means 2024 second round pick is definitely in play, if not more. The Viking now think about that. If it's a second round pick, I could do it. You could probably do it as long as you think you're going to be able to re-sign him. The Vikings control their own second round selection next year and could put it on the table if necessary to acquire a 24-year-old Young. The Commanders are in a position to demand that pick and potentially more because they will hold the trump card of keeping Young and using the franchise tag to lock him in through 2024. The argument for Minnesota to part with a major draft asset for Young beyond his own production is how much easier Young will make game day for Hunter through 7 contests. Hunter is leading the NFL in both tackles for loss, 12, and sacks 9. But despite those results, there's a minor flaw in Hunter's process. Hunter's pressures are coming a little more slowly than those of players considered to reside at the top of the position across the league, such as Myles Garrett of the Cleveland Browns, TJ Watt of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Young's presence should offer Hunter more freedom and reduce double teams for opposing offensive lines, driving up production from both edges of the defense and helping the Vikings compete for a playoff spot in a top-heavy NFC. So let's pop back up here. So the whole idea is Danielle Hunter needs help on the outside. He was getting it with Marcus Davenport. They're saying that it takes longer for him to get to a sack, get to a pressure than other teams or other high-end defensive pass rushers. So this would help him. I have no doubt about it. No doubt about that this would help our team. What is it worth a second round pick? I'd say only if we can lock in both Danielle Hunter or maybe Chase Young's our replacement as a younger player. So those two things could be true. It would make sense if we go get Chase Young, we extend him. Danielle Hunter walks in the offseason. Hopefully it's after a Vikings Super Bowl, but that would make sense. You would have a younger 24-year-old Chase Young. He's 4 years younger than Danielle Hunter. You extend him, Danielle Hunter goes, then you're looking to draft the next guy to be opposite of Chase Young. I think Danielle Hunter is a better player. But hey, you got a younger one. You might want to build a team around him. He may not cost as much as Danielle Hunter. Who knows? But I would say if you can do it, do it. Especially if we beat the Packers, which we will. We're going to put another curly W right here over the Green Bay logo. Minnesota Vikings. Let's go. Cue the music.